Do this thing, babies. Oh boy.
All right, Clara, we're just going to start if that is okay with you. I think we're already recording. So once again, Layla looks refreshed and ready to go. I'm so excited. And today I am merely here to welcome everybody back. Hope you all had fabulous parties last night. We can't wait to see pictures at lunch. And I'm going to introduce Layla Roberts, who is going to sort of give us the lay of the land today. It'll be a little different than it was yesterday. It's going to be super interactive, and we're going to dig into the local stuff that's really exciting. So Layla, take it away.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. For all of you who are willing to drag yourselves onto Zoom at 8:30 on a lovely, peaceful, foggy Friday, welcome. Thank you. If you don't know me, I'm Layla Roberts. I'm director of our North Coast Small Business Development Center, which serves small business owners and future entrepreneurs in Humboldt County, Del Norte, and adjacent tribal lands. I also serve on the board of the Crescent City Del Norte Chamber of Commerce and on the board of a solidarity economy organization called Cooperation Humboldt. So my job, and by the way, I don't know if my face is visible to the group for the recording purposes. Clara, you might want to take a peek at that. Because I can tell on Zoom that Susan's black box is surrounded in green and mine is not, and that might look a little odd for people
We
watching.
can all see you just fine.
On the live one, yes, but not on the recording.
Yes, on the recording.
So I am going to give you a little bit of context for what to expect. And the first thing that I want to say is I am really delighted and grateful and impressed that we were able to arm twist 20 speakers from across our 4-county and tribal lands region to tell us their stories and share their solutions and their successes and their struggles and their failures on such a wide variety of topics. The purpose of today's full day of packed breakout sessions and discussions is, please don't go where you're comfortable. I invite you to go where you're uncomfortable or unfamiliar. What we're really hoping is that folks will allow all of this sometimes familiar, sometimes new information to flow into your minds. And then when the time comes to click 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on the little breakout room options that pop up at the end of our collections of speakers, I invite you to choose a discussion room on a topic that you're not entirely familiar with or for a community that is not yours. And the reason for this is we want you to be inspired, and we want you to allow this unfamiliar information to bubble up your creativity in your own work and in your own community. And also, we really hope that what you hear is going to cross-pollinate to some extent from another sector to your sector, or from another geography to yours. So here is how it's going to look today. And if you have looked at the program, you'll have picked up that we're structuring this day in 3 big chunks. We grouped 5 sessions, that is 5 topics within those 3 chunks, loosely grouped by sort of a general category. Hard infrastructure is how we're kicking off the morning. Soft infrastructure later in the morning. Then a break for lunch, and we will come back in the afternoon to discuss emerging and transforming industries. And then at the very end of the day, Susan and I are going to do our absolute best to give you a 30-minute synthesis and wrap up and a call to action. So what that means is that you also have a group of 17 or more individual facilitators and note takers who stand ready to make sure that you have productive conversations and that you enjoy wrestling with some provocative questions. And also taking notes throughout your post-presentation discussions so that we have an idea of what your ahas or points of confusion or the highlights and themes were that arose across the multiple discussions. And here's why we're doing it this way. Because let's say we're starting with hard infrastructure. You're going to hear 5 speakers back to back whose presentations can be loosely grouped in that category. You're going to have little windows pop up in front of you to direct you to a breakout room to talk more about one of those 5 topics that you just heard so much about. And when you enter into that breakout room, you'll have a chance to ask some clarifying questions. But we want to preserve the majority of that conversation for a facilitated discussion that will loosely follow the World Cafe model. The what? The huh? No, thank you. I've had coffee. So this is a way to invite people who from across a community, across an industry, across a company, to come together. And it traditionally, of course, happens face to face. Imagine walking into a big room, seating yourselves at a bunch of round tables, wrestling with an important and juicy question with a small group of people, and then bing, the timer goes, facilitators stay where they are, and then in this room, all the people mush themselves around into different tables until they're in different mixes where they wrestle with a sequential question, but they also bring their insights from the last conversation into the new conversation. So I'm saying that for 2 reasons. First, I hope that you're going to find yourself listening with an ear to, what does this mean to me? How do I think this would work in my community? What do I think might be the resistance to this story or solution? And how would I cope with it? And then I want you to take your insights from one conversation into the next group and say, hey, you know what I heard last time might be pertinent to this one. So you might have a bunch of speakers talking at you, but you are also on point for participating. The last thing I want to say is that the speakers are going to be recorded. So you'll have a chance to listen to them again. If you hear something exciting, you will have an opportunity to forward that link if you'd like to. When the speakers have raised a resource or a call to action or an event, we will do our best to pull that all together for you in a follow-up email. But the World Cafe style discussion groups are not going to be recorded. We want you to feel very comfortable saying whatever you like, knowing that it won't be preserved for posterity. There will be some conversation ground rules or guidelines, but that's just to make sure that we're all working well together. Okay, so I want to pass it back over to Susan, who is going to introduce our lineup for the morning. Susan, are you ready?
I am ready. I am ready. So let me say I'm really excited to introduce our hard infrastructure group. The hard infrastructure sort of topics we're going to be covering today include housing, renewable energy, waterfront infrastructure, roads and transportation, food systems. So I would like to welcome Alan Flora and Sarah McCormick for housing, Amy Jester and Katrina Ackerson for renewable energy, Eric Weir for waterfront infrastructure, Jerome Quarzi for roads and transportation, and Portia Bramble for food systems. And what we'd love for you to do is just pass it to the next person when you're done, or just let us know when you're done and we'll introduce the next person. So first up, then I would like to invite Alan Flora and Sarah McCormick to talk about housing.
Good morning. I'm Alan Flora. I'm the city manager for Clearlake, and wanted to talk about a new program that we developed over the last year that we're calling the Clearlake Homestead Program. So I have a couple of slides here. We'll get started. Okay. So all of you may be shocked to hear that here in Clearlake and Lake County, we do have somewhat of a housing problem and a shortage. Our situation is a little different than many other communities where affordable housing is relatively easy for us to develop. We have 182 units under construction right now, affordable units, and another 80 in design, which will more than exceed our RENA numbers by 2027. But you can see up here, I have the average home value in Clearlake, which is just over 239,000 currently. And while that's over double what it was in 2017, it's still significantly below the average in many communities in our region, and certainly the state average, which is over 700,000 now. And so what you have is a situation where it's almost impossible for us to get traditional subdivision development here in the city. You have average home value that's that low. Current cost of construction in our area is around $350 a square foot. Even looking at a 1,200 square foot home, the cost of that's $420,000, and just for a development company to come in and sort of take that risk on the market is something that's difficult for us to overcome. So what we have is kind of a lack of quality housing. Our largest employers, the main professionals that work in the city, don't live here. Hospital health care is our largest employment base, along with schools, engineers, those type of professionals don't generally live in the city because there's not housing that sort of fits their market. And so, again, we're doing a good job of developing affordable housing, but the market rate stuff is difficult. We came up with a few solutions where we have essentially given chunks of land to affordable housing developers that are doing projects here. And while they're in town, they're also planning to build some more traditional subdivision development, and are able to realize some cost savings there to make it work. However, we decided we need to kind of take a new look at this and see what we can do. So briefly looking at the assets that we have, how can we approach this from a little bit of a different angle? Our city council is always supportive of kind of rewriting the rules to solve some of these problems. So we have quite a bit of land. The city owns a number of sort of standard lots throughout the city, some of which are left over from the redevelopment days still. And we still have some housing funds from that era. And so we kind of dug in, looked to see what we could come up with. There's a lot of tax defaulted properties, and that's kind of a whole nother issue that we could spend quite a bit of time talking about. But we are looking next year, when we have a new tax collector here in Lake County, to be able to negotiate, pick some of those up and fold some of those tax defaulted properties into this program. But and I did want to make a brief point as well. One of the challenges that we have is with this sort of different situation from a lot of communities across the state is, as you all know, there's a huge number of new housing bills that are passed each year, really focused on affordable housing solutions, and in my opinion, focus primarily on urban markets and more prosperous areas that are resistant to affordable housing development. So not only do they not really help us, in fact, they cause significant challenges in trying to do market rate housing development and commercial and industrial development that we desperately need for jobs and economic development. So what did we come up with? This is the Clearlake Homestead program. So it's focused on entry-level professionals, sort of that gap in the market that we aren't able to really bring in. We use the moderate income HUD thresholds. So that's what we're using to be eligible for the program, nothing below moderate. You must be employed in Lake County somewhere and agree to build a new home within the city in the next 12 months. So our initial allocation, the city council set aside $1 million. We're giving away city-owned lot for free, or we will give you up to $10,000 towards the purchase of a lot if you like one better. And then this money goes toward paying all permit and impact fees, both to the city, We don't control sewer and water utilities here, so those fees have to be paid, school and fire impact fees. If you find a set of building plans you like, we will purchase them for you. And then we also have NeighborWorks, which is a consulting group focused on housing that's providing free consulting assistance to folks to help them kind of navigate this process. We've had a number of workshops and whatnot for our applicants to help them. And we found that really that is one of the challenges for a lot of these folks is it's become such a complicated process here in California that it's difficult for the nurse who's also a single mom to kind of navigate all of this stuff, even though they have a great desire to have their own home and build it for their family. So again, the entry-level professionals is where we're focusing, and we don't have any studs going up quite yet, but we have had 49 applications thus far, 16 of which have been approved. We have one that has all their financing approved, and so that will be moving forward here relatively quickly. Several more are coming along behind, but just to give you an idea, 21% of these applications are coming from healthcare, 10% from education or school districts, and then 17% from some type of local or state government agency. So we feel like we're really attracting the folks that we want to bring in, and it's been a program that's received a lot of interest in the community, and we're very excited about getting some market rate housing built. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. That is such a cool program, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah McCormick. I work for the city of Fort Bragg, and I also have a PowerPoint to share with you all and talk about housing. Let me pull that up. All right, so Housing Mendocino Coast. This is a community land trust that has been incubated by the city of Fort Bragg with the goal of providing home ownership opportunities to our community's workforce. Let's see. Oops. Why do we need one, people? As we all know, we have, land is it's a finite resource and it's a community asset. And so the goal of this is to really set aside some land for homes that will remain affordable in perpetuity. And we all know that the reason for that, housing prices are rising way faster than people's income, and more people are priced out of the housing market. Here in our community, we have basically the flip of the national average. 65% of our community are renters, and it really shows. When people don't have that vested interest and stability of their housing costs in their house, it leads to a different type of community. So we're trying to really work on how we can create more home ownership and to strengthen and stabilize the neighborhoods. The way it works is a community land trust. It holds and owns the title of the land, and it serves as the steward of the land. It leases that land on a 99-year lease because there's no such thing as forever in legal terms, but it's basically forever. And the homeowners have exclusive rights over that land. They can, say exclusive rights. They own their home. They own all the improvements with their home. But the ground lease is recorded. It's enforceable. It's legal binding, and it really ties that homeowner to the agreement that they're making at the front end, that they're going to sell their home when it's time to sell, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, or never. But when they do go to sell, they will sell to the same area median income household as they were when they purchased it. So it's a little picture. This makes it really easy. The land trust owns the land. The price of the home is tied to the paycheck. This is going to take away all of the market ups and downs. If you make 100% of the AMI 1 year, around here it's relatively flat. It can go down, but generally it stays flat or goes up a little bit, the area median income. It's also a very objective number because the state releases it every year for every county. So it's a very simple calculation to make. Who benefits and why? You know, working as a municipality, you know, it's really important that the money that we use for housing stays with the housing. So, you know, we have affordable housing and it terms out, and then, you know, we've lost that housing. So this is a way that it protects the public investment. You invest once on the front end, and then it's the homeowners who carry it over year after year. The employers can use this as a benefit. There's a lot of flexibility with this model, to where if the hospital or the school district or a large employer wants to subsidize the house on the front end, there can be a priority for that home to serve a hospital employee or a school employee, to give priority to that organization. Of course, we all know what homeownership does. It provides security, fixed housing expenses. You know, you start building equity, you're not throwing your rent out the window every year. And that in and of itself is going to create, you know, individual, household, generational wealth, which is what we all want for our communities. Since this is you know, kind of, I feel like I'm talking to peers, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of how this happened, and if anybody else is interested in checking out this model. We used our housing grant funds from SB2 and LEAP and REAP and all of that, and we got technical assistance from Burlington Associates. Our consultant that we've been working with is this amazing woman, Deb Getchis. She has been running the Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County for the past 20 years. She really helped me figure out how to create a board of directors and file all my paperwork. And currently we're in the process of identifying our first pilot project. We requested earmark funding from Congressman Hoffman to purchase a parcel of land, and it's made it about 3/4 the way through the approval process. So that's exciting. And we'll see what happens with that. I put this up because it's never, you know, that's why we're having these regional summits, right? It's never one person, one place, one organization that can pull this off. This is a regional land trust. It's for the entire coast of Mendocino. And that way we can bring in, you know, other entities like the County of Mendocino, our hospital district, our large employers. We have a larger span for philanthropy. So that's pretty exciting. I know that a lot of the community colleges have received housing funds recently and are looking to develop student housing. So that's something that I'm starting to explore with Mendocino College, which might be an opportunity for you all in your areas. And this is my last slide that has nothing to do with CLTs, but I just want to point out that there's a grant program that's just phenomenal. It's an allocation. You don't even have to, you know, it's not competitive. So I encourage everybody to find out if your city or county has submitted an application for it. It's a 5-year allocation, and this is the final year to apply for it. And it's not too late. The October deadline is coming up though. So if you're another city and hasn't done your PHLA grant, or you work in a city, check it out. Make sure that you're getting those funds, because they're extremely flexible and can benefit all of our communities. And that's it for me for the housing thing.
Right on. Thank you guys both. That is so nice to hear what you guys are doing right outside of Humboldt, because we've exhausted the Humboldt conversations. I think, yeah, we continue to have them because it's so important. Next up, I would like to invite Amy Jester and Katrina Ockerson from Humboldt Area Foundation to talk about renewable energy and specifically offshore wind, I'm believing. So Amy and Katrina, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. It's good to see you.
Great.
We are here.
It's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you today. My name is Katerina Oscarsson. I'm the executive in residence with the Redwood Region Climate and Community Resilience Hub, or Core Hub for short. And I'm joined by Amy Jester, Director of Policy, Advocacy, and Civic Leadership at the Humboldt Area and Wild Rivers Community Foundation. As most of you probably know, we are expecting a multi-million-dollar offshore wind farm to be developed off Humboldt Bay in coming years. And we are here today to share how we are using community-led benefits process to shape this new industry in a way that is healthy and sustainable for the region, rather than repeating cycles of boom and bust and devastating extraction of natural resources that has happened here since the gold rush and timber rush. So before Amy dives into specifics of the community benefits strategy, I'll just briefly introduce the Core Hub and set some context for the offshore wind discussion. The Core Hub is a new initiative established last year by regional leaders in climate resilience, and it's being incubated at the Humboldt area and Wild Rivers Community Foundation. And our goal is really to support the region in becoming the first proven carbon negative rural and tribal area in the US by 2030. We do it by providing deep community engagement and technical assistance to help the community accelerate mitigation to and adaptation to climate crisis we're in. We do it in a way that centers equity by ensuring that as we transition to a more resilient and decarbonized future, tangible benefits accrue to disinvested and marginalized communities first and to the greatest extent. And per community's request, our first major effort is to help facilitate community engagement on offshore wind. As many of you probably know, offshore wind is already underway of the Atlantic coast. Of the Pacific coast, the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management, or BOEM, designated the Humboldt Wind Energy Area and Morro Bay Wind Energy Area as the two sections that are potentially available for developing offshore wind and are going first for lease. So auction is likely to happen this fall, and then we would be at least 5 to 8 years away from seeing any turbines in the water. And why here? Simply because Northern California and Southern Oregon have the world-class wind resources offshore. This is the best wind resource in the US. So what happens in the ocean is, of course, just a part of the picture. There would be an entire ecosystem of onshore activities to make this industry possible. So we have port development. Pictured here is a possible sort of graphic representation of how the port side to support offshore development could look like on the Samoa Peninsula. There would be electric transmission upgrades, supply chain expansion, and a lot of other enabling activities. And for technical details on all of this, I really encourage you to visit Schatz Energy Research Center's website. They have an amazing array of studies on all of this, including an economic impact and opportunities that come with this new industry. This is really a transformational change for the region. The offshore wind presents the first major climate and economic development opportunity that we have been able to engage in for over 60 years. If developed equitably and with community leadership, offshore wind can create new careers and investment in the safety and security of future generations on the North Coast. But history tells us that past industries have not invested in our long-term region's health and prosperity. And so this is the real opportunity to do things differently and set a new standard for how responsible development happens here. And with that, I'll turn it to Amy, who will give you some specifics on the community benefit strategy and how we actually go about trying to shape this industry to realize this opportunity in a healthy and sustainable way. So Amy, over to you.
Thank you, Katarina. one of the things, as Katarina noted, that is so incredibly important is that we as a rural and tribal region really come together to identify common values, interests, and start to envision and really create a roadmap for how we would like to see this industry happen. As Katarina noted, it's not every day or every generation that you have an opportunity to like shape an industry, to invite a whole new phase of development that can be incredibly significant, not only for our rural and tribal region, but for the state and the country, and for energy resilience and climate resilience. So the stuff that's up on the screen are a number of ways that we're engaging in offshore wind to support a greater diversity of constituencies and interests in our communities, in understanding what this opportunity is, in providing space for folks to wrestle with the complexity of what offshore wind might mean for them, balancing both the need to do something about climate resilience and recognizing that we have an opportunity to do that as a rural and tribal region, and also taking into consideration that there are a variety of significant cultural issues, environmental issues, and that this is a new technology not only for our region, but really for the globe. So there's a lot to hold as leaders. And as you know, we say leaders, this is really like, of course, leaders of tribal nations, local governments, community organizations, and communities that are going to be impacted by this development, which is really all of us, but particularly folks who are living directly in the areas adjacent to where offshore wind activities are going to be developed. For those for whom in our rural and tribal region do not experience energy reliability or energy sovereignty, recognizing the need to say like what's important to those communities about how this happens here. And also like really recognizing this is a real clear opportunity for our region, the state and the federal government and developers to join together to put equity and racial equity in particular in the center for this kind of development, which is critically important and a really innovative approach to doing things differently with large scale industrial energy development. So we've set about to work with a network that's comprised currently of approximately 33 different entities of various sorts from the different organizations and government types and communities that I'd mentioned before, to develop a strategy around how we would like to partner with the federal government, the state, and developers to ensure that investments come really first and foremost to our rural and tribal communities that are hosting this, this development, which our state and our nation are really depending on. So we really see this as an opportunity for those partners to invest in a way that will support this region in thriving into the future, have an opportunity to shift some of those really devastating boom and bust extractive practices that Katarina had shared before, which we know have been really absolutely devastating to tribal nations in our region in particular. And it's absolutely critical that if folks in this region are able to lead, provide vision, and have agency about how offshore wind development happens in our region, they're going to be more likely to support it. And we know that it's going to result in more sustainable development for the industry and for this place, and create more long-term opportunities for this place. So this network is growing. It's newer. We really see there are a couple of key opportunities, a couple of state and federal processes related to offshore wind development that are happening now, that we've really used as a way to catalyze community engagement and growing a network that will come together, not only for informing what happens with the federal government over the course of the next few months, leading into the auction and leasing process for the Humboldt wind energy area, but we really see this as the beginning of some decades-long effort for this community to continue to grow the way that we shape the industry. And that's going to happen at the local level, that's going to happen at the regional, tribal, state, and federal levels. So we began this process by doing a whole bunch of interviews, probably, I don't know, nearly a couple of hundred with folks from around the region to find out what was of greatest interest to them, what concerns they had, what they were excited about related to offshore wind, and really like what they thought should be taken into consideration, and also how they wanted to be involved in contributing to the conversation and leading the conversation. So we heard a whole lot about what the interests are. And what we really heard in some was that people really see that this is a huge community development opportunity, and that for our rural community that has been underinvested in, that has those legacies of extractive industry, that there are a lot of infrastructure challenges that we experience in our community that we need to be thinking about over time in order for this to really go well. Everything from water and sewer to roads to housing and beyond. So in thinking about how, like what some of the principles are that guide this work of the community benefit network, really the core purpose is to grow the region's capacity to lead how this happens, which I have spoken to so far in this presentation, to center tribal nations, Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, frontline and disadvantaged communities, and do these other pieces. I think I've covered the other stuff here on the screen. So I'll hop over to like what exactly we have done as a collective. So the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is the federal agency that is guiding how offshore wind development happens in the country. And so they are in the middle of a process of designing what it's going to look like for an auction process that would allow a wind developer, largely global energy wind developer, to create an offshore wind farm off the coast of Humboldt. They're also designing what that leasing process is going to look like. So that's really a bit of a regulatory framework for offshore wind for the next 30 plus years. So this is a really important moment for our communities to influence that process. So the recommendations that the Community Benefit Network has made to the federal government is that we would like the proceeds, 50% of the proceeds of the auction, to come into our community rather than going into the federal treasury. And that would happen through a number of different types of investment. We advocated for creating a series of community funds that would be seeded through an initial investment from the auction proceeds, and then would be funded on an ongoing annual basis with a small percentage of the annual operating fee that a developer would pay to the federal government every year for being able to maintain their lease. So those funds include a general North Coast Community Benefit Fund that would be governed by a steering committee, a governing body of sorts that would be cross-governmental, tribal, include community-based organizations, and also representatives from communities that are directly impacted by this development, to not only help determine where those funds would be invested over time, but also to stay engaged in the industry and support development of the industry and community engagement and development of the industry over the next 30 plus years. And also be able to liaise with the state, with the feds, and with developers, not to displace the individual consultation that may happen with tribal nations, or other direct one-to-one communication and relationship that's important for the government and developers to have with their constituents, but really to ensure that there's some collective vision that is guiding how things happen over time. So that's the Community Benefits Fund, the first Community Benefits Fund. The next one is a Tribal Capacity Fund that would basically do what I just shared, but be specifically focused on and governed by tribes from the region. We also identified that it's absolutely critical that tribal fisheries receive some investment and benefits from the impacts that they'll experience from this development, and advocated that a tribal fisheries fund be established, as well as an environmental research and monitoring fund that would help to grow our region's capacity to independently research, evaluate, monitor, and assess like how it's going with offshore wind and what the impacts are on our marine and bay environments where the majority of the development is going to be happening. And also to think through and offer solutions around what some mitigation opportunities might be, what some adaptation opportunities might be. Finally, we've got two more. We supported the lease area use community benefit agreement priority that the federal government included in its draft plan, and actually advocated that that be increased to provide greater levels of support for commercial fisheries, because we know that this kind of development is going to have a significant impact on fisheries in our rural communities. And we know that fisheries are such an important part of our local context, culture, and economy. And we also advocated for and supported and then advocated for deep investments in workforce as well as supply chain, with some recommendations about how those investments could be strengthened in terms of their equity orientation. So those are our recommendations for the types of investments that could come out of this auction process. Additionally, we made a number of recommendations about how the lease is structured for developers to be able to have the opportunity to run a wind farm over the next 30+ years. One of the things that we identified as being absolutely critical in this rural tribal region, where we have some of the highest rates of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples in the country, is that we get real about the potential impacts of this large-scale energy development on potentially exacerbating this humanitarian crisis that we experience here. In large-scale energy development, across the country, it's generally associated with increased rates of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples, human trafficking, and there are greater risks to vulnerable populations. So really making sure that there are some protections that would help to reduce the risk of exacerbating that crisis. Additionally, we identified the need for environmental protections, of course, and growing our local capacity to engage in that work, to lead that work, to ensure that tribal nations have the staff to be able to engage in this industry, that do their own independent monitoring and science and strategy, and working with developers, the state and the feds, to make sure that that development happens in a sustainable way over time. Of course, we also emphasized the absolute critical need to ensure that tribal sovereignty is placed at the center of how this work happens. And that not only are tribes sort of communicated with and or consulted, but are really through regulatory process that ensured the opportunity to provide significant leadership and direction, and ensure that there are economic opportunities as well. A couple other pieces that I'll cover, because I know I'm just about at time, are the absolute it's critical that we have data transparency. There's going to be a lot of data that developers are generating as they better understand the ocean environment, to prepare to establish wind farms. So we want to make sure that our communities have access to that data and better understand what it is that that developers are seeing, and that the federal government and state will understand about the ocean environment and what needs to happen there in order for development to take place in a way that's going to ensure, protections for that critical and very sensitive marine habitat. Of course, we want to ensure that there are clear pathways for enforcement. In the event that there are bad actors, we want to make sure that our rural and tribal communities have a mechanism for calling in the federal government to ensure that this is happening in a way that's good for us. And then also that we're ensuring that there's a plan for decommissioning straight out the gate so that our communities don't get caught having to deal with the cost of decommissioning ourselves. And then in closing, we just wanted to share that, as Katerina started us, like, this is an incredibly important opportunity, a time for regional visionary, innovative leadership, holding that complexity of the moment. It's really going to take all of us coming together to figure out how to do this. This is new for everybody. And we have this amazing opportunity to fundamentally shift how we think about and do this kind of development. So with that, I'll go ahead and close and pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you so much. That was great. And I really do think it's important to consider that we have a very unique opportunity here to do things the way that suit our values and, who we are without, without giving up everything so that we can get this wonderful opportunity for offshore wind. Next up, I would like to invite Eric Weir. He is the city manager of Crescent City, and he is going to talk about their new exciting waterfront infrastructure. So, Eric.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Definitely appreciate that. Yeah, definitely some exciting times around the North Coast, and waterfront infrastructure is one of those opportunities that we all have, and we're all so fortunate to have. Being on the North Coast, 6 rivers with Crescent City with Klamath, and the Smith River up here down in Humboldt County with all those rivers that are there all the way down the coast to the Pacific Ocean. We have a real opportunity here as North Coast communities to take full advantage of it. And that's what we're trying to do here in Crescent City with one of our park projects. So let me share my screen here real quick. We'll kind of walk through a little bit of the projects that we have going on, as well as just waterfront infrastructure in general as an economic driver. So when we talk about waterfront infrastructure, really what I would like to talk about this morning is parks and public spaces and having access to that waterfront infrastructure that then can drive so many components of the economics. So we look at parks as an economic driver. Parks, one, attract homeowners, home buyers, and increase property values. So this is out of an article with the Pennsylvania News, and from the National Realtors Association, it quoted as homes that are near parks actually sell for about 10% or higher than what other homes do in the area. We saw this on a trip we recently took to Portland when we were developing our park. The consultants that we have, they're out of the Portland area. And so we took a field trip up to Portland. The consultant that's now working for Greenworks and Associates used to be the Parks and Recreation director for the city of Portland. And so they built several parks in disadvantaged areas of Portland. Now those parks are built, and the areas are starting to thrive, and you're starting to see businesses develop around it. You're starting to see home values go up, and really just the engagement of the people in that community has really been transformed because of this park infrastructure. There was a study in Pittsburgh, and it was near the Three Rivers Park area, they said, and in that area, home values since 2001 increased by 60% in the area that was around that park near Six Rivers, compared to 32% in other areas. So parks attract businesses. When there was a survey done, and apparently 75% of the corporate owners, corporate businesses quoted the fact that quality of life, such as parks, different things like that, are key drivers in why they choose to locate their business where they choose to be. And so parks really do attract that. We saw that in Portland as well. Parks increase tourism, generate sales activity. The National Park Recreation Association claims that $150 billion are associated with economic activity in regard to tourism, parks, and the economic activities that creates. Parks lower health costs. Right? As people get out and they're active, there is a direct correlation between the health costs and physical activity and really access to that activity. And then also parks are green. So when we look at from a city infrastructure standpoint, you know, bioswales, you can have stormwater reduction when it comes to parks, the trees, all of those things that are associated with that. So health economics is really what it comes down to, right? I mean, as you have health, as you have a community that is accessible, that it has the ability for all aspects of that community to access recreation activities, it really promotes them to be able to accomplish other areas of their life, which then will really boils down to Maslow's motivational model, right? I mean, as you get into the deficiency needs, you have to have that core infrastructure, the police, the fire, the safety needs, but it's also the parks to allow people to then get into this growth area where then your community can start to thrive. So health is really foundational when it comes to that. Some other key points to just economic drivers. Within parks, you can have events. You'll see that in our park plan as we started to develop this. We really wanted an area that could be that economic driver. And so when local attendees for arts events, and this was through the Americans for Arts Report 2015, when they were asked if they would have went to an event that they were attending, when local attendees of an arts event were asked what they would have done if the arts event they were attending was not taking place, 41% said they would not have come to that community. They would have went to another one for that similar experience. So it's really got to be experience driven. And then you have the economics of people going out and engaging in the community, leaving their homes, whether it be from the local person, local resident going and experiencing that, they're going to spend money in your community, or someone traveling in from the outside. So the average cost, and it's much more when somebody comes in from the outside, but the average cost is $31 that will be infused into your economy if you can get someone to go to an event. The other piece I'd like to touch on is heritage tourism. So this was somewhat of a new term to me as we started to go through this. And heritage tourism is traveling to experience the place and activities that authentically represent the stories and the people of the past and present. So this was a key component when we were looking at our park. It had to have the key representation of our community, the redwoods, the ocean, the water, right? To really have that sense of context that people have arrived in a special place, and it represents Crescent City and Del Norte County as that experience that they are now here, where they will then go back, tell their family, friends, and then we'll have more people coming to the area. If you look at heritage tourism compared to just leisure tourism, on average, they spend about almost $1,000 per trip for that demographic. So if you tell the story, if you're able to create that experience, you will attract a different type of visitor, one that will have typically more means, more resources to spend more money in your town. All right, so looking at an example for Crescent City. So we're really looking at our beachfront park and the transformation of beachfront park into a park that can drive all those things that I just spoke about. So beachfront park for Crescent City, again, sits right on the waterfront. And so many of our communities, right, have this exact same opportunity to create waterfront type experiences for people. So this is Beachfront Park. It's a 35-acre park right adjacent to the Pacific Ocean, happens to be along the California Coastal Trail as well. So it is certainly a unique opportunity for us, and one that we're trying to take full advantage of. This is our park master plan. We went out and we sought an updated parks master plan through funding from the California Endowment, and then further funding from the California Coastal Conservancy. We're able to develop this park master plan with extensive outreach. This park master plan includes, and again, this was all driven by what the community wanted. So it includes a bike park, which will include a pump track in this first round. This was through extensive outreach with our high school students, with our youth, and they developed exactly what they wanted to see in this portion of the park. The park also includes an ADA or universal design expansion of a playground. And so when I say universal, it's not just for people with physical disabilities, but it's also all types of disabilities, including autism and some of those other pieces, to make sure that this is an all-inclusive portion of the park so that everyone from our community can enjoy. This piece here is one of the key areas that we are focusing in on, and really is an area that I'm most excited about, not only as city manager, but also just a person that was born and raised in this community that really didn't have a full understanding of all of our community's history. So what this represents is a cultural inclusion of the Tolowa people. So Crescent City was formerly known as Ta'atin, and it is built on the ancestral lands of the Tolowa people. And so this gives us the opportunity to work with the Tolowa people, and we formed a cultural committee is what we're calling it, and it's comprised of the Tolowa Dene Nation, the Elk Valley Rancheria, and then the Tolowa Nation. And they're working with us to be able to tell their story, the traditional culture, the traditional values, the land sustainability, the land stewardship of the native people here, and then progressing through the true history of settlement. And it's not pretty here on the North Coast. There were atrocities that need to be told. In order to really have the healthonomics, we have to have the healing that's associated with that. And through this tribal-led initiative, we're hoping to be able to facilitate that here in the park. And then the story continues to resiliency. And resiliency is really key when it comes to any of these components for the park itself, but especially when it comes to this, because it's not really about the past of the Tolowa people. It's really about the present and then the future. And partnerships, resiliency is all part of that future conversation. Working down through the park, we have the waterfront plaza, again creating access to the harbor, to the waterfront area, with infrastructure to support food trucks and sitting benches and outdoor events in that. And then you see to the left here is an amphitheater. And so we have a small amphitheater that, again, isn't going to be this big giant amphitheater with giant stadium seating and speakers and whatnot. This is going to be representative of the type of area that we're in. Waterfront, gentle slopes, hillside, where people can go and enjoy a concert here with a platform, possibly a band shell in the summertime area when it's conducive to the weather, or simply bring a blanket and have a picnic on a hillside that then overlooks the ocean and the area that we're in. And we have the entryway. Entry is going to be key as you want people to experience this, and a lot of times it's going to be a self-guided journey for people. They need to know that they have arrived in a special place. So we look at some of the perspectives, on this. This is one perspective of how the entryway into the park could look, and looking at the bike park area itself, ADA accessible playground. This one's showing more of a bouldering type of an experience. The botanical garden, when we talk about the inclusion of the Tolowa people, so much of their culture, the history is in regard to land stewardship and land sustainability. So understanding the native plants, being able to use those native plants, tell the story of the Tolowa people through land stewardship is going to be a critical aspect. You see some of the other perspectives as we're looking through. The city also has a very unique sister city story in regard to Rikuzen-Taka, Japan, and Kamome, which was a boat that was actually drifted across the Pacific Ocean from Rikuzen-Taka. Rikuzen-Taka was devastated in 2011 with the nearshore tsunami. This boat then washed up on Crescent City's shores 2 years later. Came from their high school. Our high school kids actually took this boat, cleaned it up, and then delivered it back to them. That's how our sister city started. This was featured in the Olympics as part of a three-part showing with NBC just this past summer. Perspective shot of the waterfront plaza. Possibly what the amphitheater is going to look like, although this design is really shifting now as we're working with these consultants. So again, these are the different pieces that are funded. We have the new bike park. There's a 1 mile loop that goes around for exercise, ADA playground, Talawa cultural interpretive area, the passive culture, which will continue to tell the full history, amphitheater and waterfront plaza. So for us, it really came down to community connection and inclusion. Like I say, the most impactful thing that we're working through right now is the inclusion of the Talawa piece. So this is a quote from the Talawa Day Chair. The nation is looking forward to the day that we can walk through the new beachfront park made with Talawa culture elements, community vision and pride, and honoring the people before us. In the spirit of healing and peace, the new vision of Beachfront Park represents both the past and the present Talawa people. Through our sacrifices and resiliency, we are able to contribute to this unified vision today. And the tribal council as a whole, Ta'atin, which we talked about, that's the traditional name of Crescent City, and Beachfront Park are on the ancestral lands of the Talawa people. The representation of our people shows great honor and gratitude to the land and our elders who have stewarded the area since time immemorial. The act of inclusion and diversity coming to Beachfront Park is a commitment from this new generation to accept and acknowledge this land and the Talawa people as the first people in this community. We look forward to the continued relationship with the city and commitment they show in learning, growing, and accepting our town's history. So that's the park itself. And if your community is like our community, these are exciting projects, these are exciting plans, but there also has to be a pathway to try to get them funded. So that's really where we took aim on Prop 68. Prop 68 is a competitive grant for the majority of the components of it. And the city, through this plan, because of the community outreach, because of the partnerships, ended up being able to submit some really competitive grant applications. So with that, the city was awarded over $8 million for the completion. So this isn't just a plan on paper. It is a plan that is going to come to life. There will be this money of $8 million that's going to be invested, and then there's also a street project that's going to be over $2 million right in the same area that will be invested in this in the next 3 years. So there will be this transformation. So this is Beachfront Park. Yeah, the whole, we've looked at this master plan. Those different components, like I say, will be in construction over the next several years. Then we have the street project. So right now, we have a barrier between our community and this park. It's Front Street. Front Street right now is 5 lanes and over 100 feet for the pedestrian to cross. We're able to secure CDBG grant with storm drain infrastructure to build this west half. Now we're focusing in on this half. Again, it's going to be about getting people access to this waterfront infrastructure. So as we look down, here's a rendering of what it might look like. Signage is going to be so important. So looking at some sort of arch as you come down Front Street, and then you would enter into the park through that entryway that's going to be designed with really the experience in mind. So in summary, parks as an economic driver. Obviously, there's economic benefits to parks on multiple levels. What's worked for us is having a plan, right? Bring in the professionals. We're fortunate we went after smaller grants to obtain the professional resources that we needed to develop this plan. Can't stress enough the ability to partner. It's partnering with your city, partner with the county, partner with the local tribal governments that are there, school district, partner. We can't do this alone. We're so much stronger together. And then the other thing is be intentional. We, as the North Coast, have so much to offer, but it's all right here, right? We don't have to change to offer it. We just have to put a frame around it. And that's really what we're trying to focus in on for us. We have the Redwoods, we have Redwood National Park, we have the water, we have all of these things. Just put that frame around it. Community outreach, imperative, right? Inclusion, equity, all of those things are key. And that's really what's been successful for us in trying to develop this waterfront infrastructure, which then will drive so many other things as far as economics go. So with that, that is the basis of what's going on here in Crescent City, and I think is a true opportunity from a regional level to really embrace these different aspects and parks and economics and waterfront infrastructure in general.
Thanks so much, Eric. I've been noticing the comments. People are really excited about your project. I think you're going to get some visitors up in your area from our own region.
That is excellent.
Next, we're going to move on to a discussion about roads and transportation. So I'd like to introduce Joan Curiazzi from Humboldt Transit Authority, and he's going to talk about the Multimodal Center in Eureka. So Jerome, are you ready?
I am. Can you hear me?
Great, yes.
Okay, I have a few slides here. Let me pull them up here. Thank you for the chance, the opportunity to share some exciting work that we're doing here. I'm going to be talking today about the Eureka Regional Transit and Housing Center concept that we were recently awarded funding for, and just talk about some of the process that led to how we got this project to where it is today. Just a quick overview of Humboldt Transit Authority, where we're located, and just kind of roughly what our operations look like. This project is exciting for us is that it's really branching out to what our normal experience is. We're used to running buses, so we're excited to jump into learning about running and operating a transit center for the community. A quick summary of where the funding came from. This funding came from the TRSIP grant, which stands for Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. This is one of the primary sources of state funding for large transportation infrastructure projects. Just to give a sense of the scale of this funding, their cycles are every 2 years, and total funds awarded have ranged from between $350 million to $3.5 billion. And it's one of the primary sources for large scale rail projects in the state, but a lot of transit infrastructure also gets funded through this funding source. And this graphic shows the full breadth of the project that was funded. We received $38.7 million to start our transition to zero emission buses by constructing a hydrogen fueling station and acquiring 11 new fuel cell electric buses. We'll also be creating a new intercity connection run between Eureka down to Ukiah to help further expand ridership and transit options down south to the Bay Area in connections with the SMART train, and to help supplement current service offered by Amtrak and Greyhound. And also a big part of this project is the new transit center, which is shown here. And I also just showed these projects in context to other active transportation and affordable housing projects that are planned or existing in the area. And there's a location of where the planned transit center will be, and I'll dive into more details in a bit. So I'll just step through the history of our need for a transit center, how we got to this point of funding and receiving this funding, how we arrived at the site, selecting this site, the visioning that went around it, and then the current design and next steps. The area has wanted a transit center since the late 90s. In fact, it's been listed in our regional transportation planning document, which is a critical document for listing projects for federal and state funding. And it's been listed in there since '98. We even had an early design for a transit center along the waterfront in Eureka, but that was never funded. And the Eureka General Plan has listed the desire for a transit center for a number of years. A lot of words here, but highlighting the points. And one thing that really struck me is how important the scoring criteria in grants was for catalyzing this project. I don't think anyone, before we started down this path of applying for this funding, none of us had really thought about integrating housing and transit center into the same project. But we're increasingly seeing that multiple state agencies are really acknowledging that traditionally siloed sectors are actually very integrated. So for example, we're seeing an increased emphasis on disadvantaged communities with regards to how funding is distributed. And that's really a recognition in the intersection between land use planning and social services, and also cultural racism and a lot of the topics around tribal, how the tribes our interaction with the tribes in the past. Similarly, state recognizes that land use planning and housing access are closely integrated with transportation infrastructure design. And we're really seeing the Strategic Growth Council and the California Air Resources Board, among others, really moving the needle on pushing grant funding to incentivize cross-sector benefits. And I also think we'll really see similar criteria start to emerge in the Federal Inflation Reduction Act. So the fact that this criteria was here in terms of increasing the score for our grant application was really a critical piece in catalyzing the project as a whole. On site selection, there were a lot of pieces that fell into place for this. As I'd mentioned, that the general plan has wanted a transit center for quite a while. And the housing element also lists the plan to construct affordable housing on publicly owned properties. And the city has gone through a process for a few years now of starting to solicit for developers to construct on parking lot areas that are underutilized. The location we're looking at, which is at 8th Street and 3rd Street in Old Town Eureka, is currently an existing transfer point for 4 out of 5 transit systems that we operate. And it's been that way for almost 30 years. And those orange lines show the different transit boarding and transfer points that we currently use. The city has also been in a planning process for what's called a north-south corridor planning area to really improve and expand on bicycle and pedestrian and active transportation infrastructure to help facilitate multimodal commuting. And then also this location is really at the center of high employment in key commercial districts. So there's a lot of pieces that really made sense for a project like this. Furthermore, what's really at the heart of what's called transit-oriented design, or integration of housing with transit in close proximity, is to try to create an environment where people will rarely need to use a personal vehicle. That's really the goal here, is to reduce vehicle miles traveled and to get people out of personal vehicles. This has a lot of benefits for health benefits, as well as greenhouse gas reduction benefits. Active transportation is active and comes with all the benefits associated with being more physically active. So this particular location has access to most of what people need on a daily basis within a 20-minute multimodal commute. So multimodal being a mix of walking, car share, ride share, scooters, biking, and transit. And then just outside of that, there are a number of key resources, education, such as Cal Poly Humboldt College of the Redwoods, and medical services, such as St. Joseph's Hospital. So all of these are really important for ways of planning around projects that are targeted around transit-oriented development. Once we had sort of engaged initial stakeholders and it looked like pieces were coming into place for this project to move forward, we held a visioning process and meeting with a number of stakeholders to really come together, identify what the key goals and mission is of this project, and using this to really guide the design process. And we're really wanting to make this project a pride of the community and a critical piece of from a transit center perspective, as well as in terms of a transit center being successful, as well as a safety perspective, both for visitors to the transit center and the residents at that location. We need really the critical goal here is to make the location a place that's a destination. So we're really focusing on making this something that integrates into the community and that people actually want to go to. It's not a place that people are passing through. And that'll really be a critical piece to this, making this project successful. So just a look at the current design. We have a ways to go into finalizing the design, but we've made a lot of progress to date. This is the current location where the parking lot is the planned location for this infrastructure, for this new development. And then here's the same view of what our plans are projecting. The transit center is the bottom floor on the left building. And there's planned student housing above that transit center. And the building on the right is planned as commercial space with workforce housing above that. And all of the housing is targeted to be a certain percentage below area median income, so meeting affordable criteria. There's an example of some of the key features that went into this design. You'll notice that there's sort of active, there's multiple transportation modes or access to multiple transportation modes around the majority of the facility. And these modes are bicycle, transit, car share, individual vehicles dropping off people, and express runs. Greyhound and Amtrak will also come here. Paratransit taxis will also have bicycle and scooter rentals, and just really making this a destination place. Yep. And here's another view of the transit center. So this is really the transit center side. So this bottom story is this sort of really active transit space. And we're looking to co-locate it, a number of services, including integrate services across all of those different transportation modes in terms of the services needed to access those. And this is another perspective of what we're currently looking at. One key design element to this towards that goal of making this a destination space is having a very attractive and vibrant community area in between the two sides of the building. We also sort of envision, potentially attracting farmers market events here, or maybe just outdoor venues, music. This will be accessible to food trucks. So, we're still early in the design phase, but a lot of concepts like that to again make this a vibrant area so it's active, so that it really elevates both the safety and the success of integrating this into the community. And in terms of looking forward and what our next steps are, again, this is in terms of housing side, we're really targeting 20 student housing units. This is in collaboration with Cal Poly Humboldt to meet their growing demands and their growth projections. And then also 22 studio workforce apartments to help alleviate some of that pressure on lack of access to housing. And then also 4 one-bedroom workforce apartments. And we're looking to finalize the design and permitting process by middle of next year, summer of next year, and really start construction late next year with a target of opening around July of 2025. So that's a look into this exciting project. We're really excited to add to the Old Town experience and really help increase its vibrancy and sense of community. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming. I think it is such an exciting project that is one of those things that represents change, that sometimes people need to think that we need to change some things. Sometimes there's sacrifice for great reward, and I think it's going to be such a great project. Next up, we are going to be hearing about our last part infrastructure topic is food systems. I know there is a ton of information regionally, lots of projects going on, lots of interest in food security. And so I would like to introduce Portia Bramble, who is going to talk about a project here specifically in Humboldt County. And this is, I'm sure, an ongoing conversation we're going to hear a lot about in future conferences. So Portia.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here today. These are some really exciting topics for us to be following. And I am joined today by my coworker, Ivy North, who will be clicking through the slides for us today and is also our Director of Agricultural Programs. Also on our team, we have Megan Kenny, who is our Director of the local food hub and cooperative distribution. And Megan is on a much deserved vacation at the moment. And I'm joining you from beautiful downtown Ferndale in the heart of local agriculture. So I apologize for any background noise. We were having internet issues. But that being said, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Portia Bramble. I'm the Executive Director for North Coast Growers Association. We are Humboldt County's farmers markets and a whole lot more. So I'll tell you, Humboldt County has an agricultural history that is long, rich, and deep. And we have a history of large-scale production of many varieties of crops, from potatoes to heirloom apples, ranching, and dairy. And I have been with this organization for 15 years, supporting local producers and running our local farmers markets. So what does regenerative agriculture mean to us? Instead of just aiming for carbon neutrality, regenerative farmers know the capacity their soil has to sequester carbon, reduce methane emissions, improve water retention, and increase their farm's outputs, both in terms of food production and environmental impact, while decreasing their inputs. We have a unique concentration of regenerative, small-scale, sustainable, and conscious farmers here on the North Coast. The first farmers markets in Humboldt County opened in 1978 in Eureka as a project of a large federal grant program known as the Community Action Project, whose purpose was to alleviate poverty in rural areas. Operating under the umbrella of the Redwood Community Development Council through the Center for Community Development at Humboldt State University at the time, these projects addressed nutrition, education, and agricultural development. So Humboldt County farmers markets were born out of a collaborative effort from the community to support our local farmers. The North Coast Growers Association has grown from a farmers market operator to an agricultural support organization, offering program areas that uplift farmers and educate our community. Today, we engage in a wide variety of different programs and projects that support the community in different ways. We have over 180 members across the county. We represent not just the Arcata Farmers Market, but all 11 now certified farmers markets across Humboldt County. We work collaboratively across the state through the California Alliance of Farmers Markets. And I personally sit on CDFA, the California Department of Food and Agriculture's Certified Farmers Market Advisory Council. And that is a unique and exciting opportunity to be at the table with policymakers and regulators to help shape the California farmers market industry. We also have very strong partners across the county engaging in many types of education and business development for farmers. We have our Harvest Box and Freezer project and the Emerging Food Hub, which I will tell you more about. We do a ton of education and advocacy. One of our farmers pulling out his truck right now from one farmer's market in 1978. North Coast Growers Association has grown to be a leader within the California small farm industry and a cornerstone organization of this community. You can see the growth in the environmental impact of farmers markets in Humboldt County represented here on your screen. We have a large operating budget. We have huge programs that impact our farmers. You can see the EBT distributed, that refers to CalFresh dollars, the SNAP program, federally known as SNAP, in California known as CalFresh. And that program, was previously known as the food stamps program. So that is just direct dollars that have a double benefit to the customer as well as the farmer. It is money in the hands of our customers to shop for locally produced, healthful, seasonal fruits and vegetables, meats, eggs, and other products at our farmers markets. And we are able to match those CalFresh dollars through our Market Match Healthy Food Nutrition Incentive Program. So for every $10 that a customer spends with their CalFresh benefits, they receive $10 in additional money that they can spend for fruits and vegetables. And they can do that once per farmers market at every one of our markets across the county. So it represents a huge boost in their spending ability, their capacity to purchase local and healthful foods, and also a boost to the farmers' income through the markets. And this is a program supported by a state program as well as a federal program. These programs exist across the country and across the state. California is a leader in this effort to create nutrition incentive programs, and North Coast Growers Association has been offering Market Match and been a leader in nutrition incentives for over a decade now. So since fresh food is not subjected to sales tax, the economic impact of locally grown and raised foods is often overlooked. Knowing this, economists have studied the economic multipliers associated with farmers markets. And this is how we reach, on the previous slide, the $4.2 million economic impact to Humboldt County through farmers markets. So that represents a significant income to the agriculture industry and a huge part of our local economy. The North Coast Growers Association has robust relationships between our staff, our farmers, and the local community. And this has placed North Coast Growers Association in a central position to be able to create solutions to issues faced by farmers, businesses, and individuals. We have our finger on the pulse of what our food system's strengths and weaknesses are. Humboldt County's population growth and Cal Poly Humboldt's promise to increase local food purchasing to 20% by the year 2025 are significant factors in the expected growth of local food production year-round in the very near future. 2025 is just around the corner. Our farmers need to start buying seed, tilling the soil, and preparing to plant now, basically, to meet that growing demand. We have seen an influx of companies from out of the area eyeing the emerging economic opportunities on the near horizon for Humboldt County. The importance of uplifting local projects before others try to step in and fill the gaps cannot be overstated. Supporting existing community-based organizations is critical to ensuring new industry opportunities meet the needs of our unique community. So after engaging our community and food system stakeholders through meetings, interviews, and surveys, NCGA has been able to map out the needs of various aspects of our food system. While each business faces their own unique challenges, there have been a thread tying each conversation together, which is infrastructure, or the lack thereof. When Humboldt Bay Packers, the cold storage facility, the largest in the region, closed in April 2021, there was no other facility locally to move displaced products to. So NCGA launched a fundraising campaign to purchase a freezer for use by our meat producers. This freezer pictured here gives our small scale ranchers the peace of mind to know their products can safely be stored until sale. There is literally no other cold storage available, freezer space available for local ranchers unless they purchase their own freezer units to be held on their farm. So we're, pioneering and engaged with the concept of community supported infrastructure. And that applies to the concept of community owned infrastructure to prevent emergencies like the closure of Humboldt Bay Packers caused. So we are a membership based organization. Our freezer is owned collectively by our members and is available for their use. This freezer is just a drop in the bucket compared to the total need for cold storage to meet all agricultural needs, and the need for freezer space for the local fishing industry alone is significant. The fishing industry is facing dire straits. The tuna season has been bountiful, and fishing vessels are sitting in the ocean waiting because there is no freezer space on land where they can store their products. So the freezer emergency is not the only immediate infrastructure need. The lack of cold storage, aggregation, and distribution of local food through a central hub is a limiting factor to the growth of our local agriculture industry and economic development, and an impediment to disaster preparation. Using the information collected over the last decade of feasibility studies and research, and from 2 years of concentrated community engagement meetings with other rural food hub operators, the food systems advisors, and community-based organizations, North Coast Growers Association is implementing a regional food hub as the next step of our expansion of services for our agricultural producers. The Harvest Hub will be a physical space with cold storage that will be used for hub operations, as well as available for rent by farmers. North Coast Growers Association will help connect wholesale buyers with our farmers by creating an ordering and invoicing system to reduce redundancies in the current system. At the moment, restaurant owners must order from multiple farms, accept multiple deliveries from them, accept and pay and record individual invoices from each farm business. Farmers have to receive orders and make multiple deliveries to different locations throughout the county, write and accept payment and record invoices for each individual business. North Coast Growers Association's Harvest Hub will consolidate that process, offering a single point of contact, delivery and invoice for both the farmers and the buyer, in order to allow each to focus on their own food production in the fields, farming what they do best. To prepare for rising populations, increase climate-driven emergencies, and help improve our local food economy, we need to invest now in our community through the creation of this critical infrastructure and supporting local community-based organizations.
Keep checking on me. I'll let you know. Okay, bye-bye.
Local agricultural production sustains life in this region. Local farm businesses help create and sustain high quality jobs, keep money within the local economy, and have the ability to quickly be activated in an emergency situation to help Humboldt reach our goal of becoming carbon neutral while simultaneously helping to alleviate food insecurity across the North Coast. We have been participating in many emergency response conversations, showing us how unprepared our county's food system as a whole is to respond to emergencies and disasters. NCGA is working with the Blue Lake Rancheria on a feasibility study to plan how a series of refrigerated, solar-powered nodes would improve our local emergency food response. These would be located adjacent to community centers, schools, resource centers, churches, and can be used to increase their daily food storage capacity. And these nodes will have enough space to be rented by farmers in those communities to extend the shelf life of their products, and can be used as drop sites for the Harvest Hub, reducing the number of trips farmers need to take. We have a strong network of community partners and a well-connected collaborative team of ag industry supporters. We work closely with the Humboldt Food Policy Council, the Rural Center for Policy at Cal Poly Humboldt, as well as others, keeping our eyes on the big picture, looking to increase the resiliency of our food system as a whole. There are a handful of other exciting opportunities that have risen to the top of infrastructure needs in addition to the food hub. The first is a response to the needs of the fishing industry and the lack of cold storage space, as well as inadequate market opportunities. Local fishermen have been taking steps to establish a dockside market in Eureka in the immediate near future to move towards stabilizing this industry. Stakeholder meetings with farmers and community partners in the last years have identified major land access barriers for new and expanding row crop and diversified farms. Land matching programs exist across the country, and we are working to develop localized programs to meet our specific needs. Our meat production industry is also being met with significant barriers to sustainability and expansion. Our only local slaughtering and packing facility has an up to 6-month wait time and cannot keep up with current production, much less meet the growing community demand and farmer capacity for meat production. We also have our eyes on the economic opportunities for agritourism, which we have heard a lot about today: transportation, tourism, housing, and we are working with a number of partners to identify projects to host, project hosts and funding sources to get agritourism programs off the ground. So we have placed our contact information on this slide, and we will be making this presentation available to anyone who would like to use it and share with their community and their staff back at their office. I think that is just about it for our slides and presentation. And I will say thank you very much for listening and bearing with the background noise. It is busy in downtown Ferndale today, but so it goes with internet connectivity in Humboldt County. So I appreciate that. And I will look forward to taking phone calls and questions from anyone at any time about this exciting project. We are ready to move into the food hub location, but we still need funding support to sustain us into the first year as we grow that project in phases. And I look forward to hearing all of your questions in the discussion session, which we will be moving into next. So thank you very much.
The breakout rooms. I'm so sorry. I was talking and I didn't realize I was muted.
No, you're fine.
Let's see. So I have posted in the chat, and I'm going to post again right now all of the beautiful and wonderful sessions we just heard with a number and their title. And I'm going to open up the breakout rooms, which will have the same corresponding number and the theme. So breakout room 1 is housing, breakout 2 is offshore wind, breakout 3 is waterfront infrastructure, breakout 4 is integrated transit and housing, and breakout room 5 is food hub. And so I'm going to open those rooms now. It is self-select. And then when we get to time, I'm going to close the breakout rooms, which will give a 2-minute countdown to finish up any thoughts and farewells. And then we will have a short break before we come back at 10:55 for social infrastructure. Yay. So go ahead.
So what I will add is, if you haven't participated in Zoom breakout rooms before, if you take a look at the bottom of your screen, there is a new little option there, breakout rooms with 4 boxes sitting together. And if you click on that, you're going to see a list. Oops, no, that's inviting me to create breakout rooms.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, I've created the list and I'm gonna open them all right now, and everyone will have an option to self-select.
I jumped the gun. Thank you,
No
Clara.
worries. All good. All right, off we go.
And if you have any trouble navigating your way to a breakout room, Clara can help you by placing you in the room that you're interested in. I see, for example, Susanna had been asking for housing.
Susanna, I will do my very best to get you into housing. There's a couple people here with us today. Got close to, I think, 100 last count, so I will do my best. And yes, if anyone's having any issues, let me know how I can assist you. And off they go. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so choose your room, especially if you are a speaker or facilitator or note taker, please choose the corresponding room. And if you're having any issues, feel free to turn on your mic, let me know, or let me know in the chat. Cindy, let's see. Cindy, what room, let me know what room you'd like to be in, and I can just pop you right in there.
No, wait, yeah, 4. I'm in transportation.
All right, there she goes.
Zoom.
Good one. Let's see, so we still have a couple of people here. So if you are having any issues or you need my help, Jade, 106, you want to be in room 2. Let me make that happen. And if you're not seeing anything, make sure to expand your screen. That should offer up the option. But also just feel free to turn on your mic or let me know in the chat how I can help get you where you need to go or where you'd like to go. And if you don't want to join a breakout room, that's okay too. Although I'd really recommend taking this opportunity to participate and be able to get some one-on-one time with the speakers and ask questions.
Did you see Janet's request to get into room 2?
It's done.
Okay, lovely. All right, my friends, we have Larry Etker and Weston and a chamber and many anonymouses like hippopotamuses. Carol, Tammy, Bob, Kim, Brandy, Mike, Tom, Rodney, Kate, Jen, Joy, Talbot, Josh. How can we help you?
Yes, please let us know.
Kate is asking to be moved to room 2.
Room 2, Kate, I shall make that happen.
And our friends who are joining us, and if you're labeled in the system as anonymous, that's fine, but it makes us difficult to know who you are and where to place you. If you're willing to rename yourself in the Zoom room, that's always helpful.
Doesn't have to be your real name. You could name yourself anything.
Pseudonyms are fun.
You know,
Okay.
unicorn sparkles.
All right. Looks like in the main room and not yet in a breakout, we still have
22.
Larry, Weston, Carol, Bob, Brandy, Mike, Tom, Rodney, Jen, Joy, Talbot, Josh. How can we help you get slotted into a discussion?
Feel free to turn on your mic or let us know in the chat. Certainly don't want to put anyone in a room that they don't want to be in. Let's see, Weston, the way you get to a World Cafe is you join one of the breakout rooms. So out of the 5 options we've mentioned, do you have a particular favorite, or should I just randomly put you in one of the breakout rooms where the World Cafe discussion is taking place right now? Let us know either by putting in the chat what room you would like to be in, or you can turn on your mic and let me know. Or I can put you in a random room. Just indicate some way what your
Hey, oh, join the breakout room. Breakout rooms.
Hi, Jade 106.
That's Janet.
Oh, Janet.
She wanted to go into room 2, I think.
Yes, and that is.
You please. And this time I'll try not to get booted out of it.
Room 2. Okay.
I thought you had disappeared. There you are.
Let's see. So room. No worries at all. Room 1 is housing.
No, Janet wants room 2.
Janet has been moved to room 2. This is Weston. Excuse me. Weston, room 1 is housing, room 2 is offshore wind, room 3 is waterfront infrastructure, room 4 is integrated transit and housing, and room 5 is food hub. And all of that information I can put in the chat.
I'll put it right now, just copying from earlier.
Beautiful, thank you.
Weston wants room 5. All right, lovely.
Weston, it shall be so. As soon as I can scroll. Room 5? Yes, okay, beautiful. All right, anyone else? Colleen, Joy, Mike, Rodney. It just feels like I'm picking baby names, but maybe that's because my sister-in-law is pregnant. And they're going through the baby name phase right now.
Okay, I think it's fair to assume that those who have not joined a discussion room are multitasking, which is completely understandable on a busy Friday. So we'll just hang out here. And Clara, I'm going to put myself into a discussion room unless you need something from me.
I always need to. No, go have fun, have fun. I'm gonna hang out here, folks. So if you come back and you decide that you would like to be put in a room and you're having any issues, or you accidentally left the room and you want to go back, just indicate either in the chat. I'm here to help.
Okay.
And I will be closing the rooms at, or putting the timer to close the rooms at around 10:40. Layla, do you want me to put you in a room?
No, I'll take care of it. I'm just looking at a text here. Dilo is noting that one of their participants wanted to share her video as well as unmute, but was not allowed to do that. It could just be her own technical issue, but I wondered, is there anything barring her from doing that?
No, I've opened all access. So
Okay.
if they're,
This is Colleen. Can you hear me?
yes.
We can.
Okay, I've been having technical issues and I don't know if it is the actual app that's giving me the problem. I just got off with my internet service. So I would like to go to a room. I'm not sure which one, but can you please tell me how I do that?
Certainly. So you can either self-select, but why don't I go ahead and put you in a room? It does sound like you have two. Two of the Zoom window open, Colleen. So sorry, Colleen. I'm just going to mute you just for a second so I can get through that. Colleen, it sounds like you have two of the windows open. So I'll certainly put you in a room right now, but what I would advise is making sure that you only have one of the windows open to stop that reverberation. If you continue to have any technical difficulties, please do not hesitate to reach out to us through the chat, and I will do my very best to help. Usually also leaving the meeting and coming back can usually help jumpstart any technical issues like that. But why don't I go ahead and put you in a room? I'm so sorry. I know you just told me what room you wanted to be in, but could you let us know in the chat once more, unless Layla remembers? I'm afraid not. I'm so sorry, Colleen. My apologies.
No, I did not pick any room at this time yet.
So number one is the housing.
So sorry, Colleen. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again because again, it sounds like you have two windows open.
Number two is offshore wind. Number three is the community park as an economic driver. Room 4 is integrated transit and housing hub. And 5 is food hub. So if you want to pop into the chat which room you're interested in joining, Clara can make that happen. And the same goes for anyone else. If you find that you have a moment and want to go join the discussion, Talbin, Brandy, Bob, Jen, Rodney, Mike, and all of our anonymi, feel free to ask.
And Colleen, don't want to forget about you. If you're having issues with the chat, go ahead and turn on your mic again and just let me know what room you'd like to be in. Jen, I see you'd like to be put into room 1. It is done. And Colleen, not forgetting about you, if you can indicate either in the chat or if you want to turn your mic back on again and let me know what room you'd like to be in. Or if you want to maybe try and fix that reverberation by closing this the tab and re-entering into the event, which I know is a bit of a pain, and I am sorry, but that usually tends to fix these technical issues. But let me know how best we can help.
The blue zone, the health.
Hasn't taken place yet. We're still in warning. Hasn't taken place yet. We're still in warning. So your 5 options are in the chat box, and I've just repasted them so that they're easy to find. All right, Clara, I'm hopping out. I'll
Yeah,
see you.
yep. And again, I'm gonna hang out here. Everyone who's still maybe half listening, if you come back and you decide you do want to pop into a breakout room, just let me know. I'll be here. And Colleen, if you're still there and you'd like to maybe be put in a room, we've pasted again in the chat the different options, or I'd be happy to help you solve any technical issues that you're experiencing. Just let me know, communicate either through your mic or through the chat, how best I can help you. And of course, if anyone else is here and you've been experiencing any technical difficulties during the summit at this, this is a great moment to have some one-on-one IT help. So let me know what I can do. And especially if you are under anonymous, let me know if there's something that I can do to help you. It's kind of hard to call out anonymous 1, 2, 3, but I'm here to assist. I think this would have been a great moment to prepare to, cold open, tight 10, as the comedians call it, but I'm no comedian, as evident. All right, so if you haven't indicated at this point, oh, hello. Hi, Colleen. How is it going? Is there anything I can do to help you with your technical difficulties? If you want to go ahead and turn on your mic, because I can't hear you. Or you can indicate in the chat.
Yes, I was wondering if it was still showing 2.
Let's see. I see. Look. So it's not showing 2, but because of the reverberation that I'm hearing on your end, it tells me that you have the window open twice on your computer.
And I do not.
I see. Interesting. Sorry, we're still getting that reverberation. Just out of curiosity, did you close your browser and reopen it, or did you just leave?
Yeah, I've done several things with my internet company.
Oh, I don't think that it's to do with the internet company. I think you might have the window open twice on your computer.
Well, it's certainly not showing.
Sometimes they can either be minimized or hidden behind another window. It happens quite often. You seeing anything like that?
Nope. Um,
Well, let's see. Still happening, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. It's stopping me from talking. Oh, Colleen, I think I lost you. Hi, Colleen. Let's see. I just saw in the chat that still show to. So it's not showing that you're in here twice. You haven't entered in the meeting twice, but the window might be open twice. Small business chat room would work, please. Let's see. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. I'm so sorry to ask you to have to clarify again, but would you like me to put you into one of the breakout rooms? One thing that I might suggest trying is closing your browser and reopening it. So yes, you'd like to be put into a room. Okay, which room would you like? We have room 1 is housing, room 2 is offshore wind, room 3 is waterfront infrastructure, room 4 is integrated transit and housing, and room 5 is food hub. So why didn't, if it's possible for you to let you, okay, room 4. All right, off you go. And of course, if anyone else is still listening or still interested and wants to be put in a room last minute, we've got probably another 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. So still plenty of time to get into and have lots of fun conversations. Nick, I see you'd like to be put into room 5. It is done. If anyone else is joining us and would like to be put into a room, please let me know. And if anyone is joining us now and would like to join one of the breakout rooms, World Cafe discussions that are happening, please let me know either in the chat if you need help getting moved into a room, or you can self-select. A little message should pop up down at the bottom of the Zoom screen saying breakout rooms. If you go ahead and select that, you'll see the options, the plethora, dare I say, if 5 can be called a plethora, of different breakout rooms and World Cafe discussions that are happening right now. Feel free to join one, or if you're multitasking or have joined us a little early for the social infrastructure, that's great too. And you can just hang out with me and get whatever work done you need to get done before we start at the social infrastructure portion at 10:55. for any assistance or any questions lately. So I'm going to turn off my video and mic, but if anyone needs any help of any kind, I will be here and ready to help. So just indicate either by messaging me in the chat, turn on your video and wave your hands, call for help. Let me know what I can do. If you're just joining us now, breakout sessions are in progress. You're welcome to go ahead and join them. You'll see an option for breakout rooms. You can select that and then self-select into the option that you would like to join. I'm going to go ahead and once again, in the chat, there are all of the breakout room options that are happening. So feel free to hop in, join whichever one sounds the most interesting, or you're curious, or you'd like to ask one of the keynote or one of the speakers a question one-on-one, you may do so now. We've got another 9 minutes before the rooms close, so now is the time to join in if you're interested. And if you're multitasking, that's okay too. All of us are in some small way at some point today during the summit, so that's okay. But let me know if there's anything I can do.